The galaxy burns. The heretic falls. And the Emperor protects. Welcome, Imperial citizens, to The Emperor Protects. My name is Doug, and I'm hanging out with my good friend Dan. How you doing today?
Doing wonderful, my friend.
Yeah, and so we, on this little show here, read Horus Heresy books so you don't have to. And we've covered quite a few of the books leading up to the Primarch, Siege of Terra as we get started, and then a few of the Primarch novels going through their different backstories. But these last 2 weeks, we decided to just chill out and read some short stories because Heresy is full of great short stories.
Oh yeah. It's so great.
Yeah. And so we did this last week as well. I picked one about space battles. Dan, you picked another one about the Mechanicum.
Mm-hmm.
And we have another set of those stories for you here this week. If you are interested or if you know of any particularly cool stories, please drop them in the comments here on YouTube, or you can go message Dan via Cubic Shenanigans, his podcast.
Yep.
And we'll take those under consideration. So that's pretty much all I have for our topic introduction here. Do you want to kick us off with a story?
Yeah. So I picked another one that is Mechanicum related.
Okay.
It's called The Binary Succession.
Mm-hmm.
And the real question to ask to open it is, has Mars brought its civil war to Terra? And the other question to ask is, who speaks for the loyal Mechanicum when there are two fabricator generals? Because remember, we have Kelbor Hall, who has gone over to Horus, who took over Mars, and then you have Zagreus Cain, who has taken all the exiles from Mars who escaped the civil war there and brought them to Terra. And so you have this really huge representation, this huge community of Mechanicum that are loyal to the Omnissiah still, and the Omnissiah being the Emperor, essentially. If you go back and listen to our episode 7 on the Mechanicum, you realize that he came to Mars, and the Omnissiah is really the conglomeration of, it's a god and it's a representation of the machine. So it's kind of those two things, but they worship that, and the fact that they worship something is significant in this story. So,
okay.
So we start the story, and this all takes place on Terra, on a place called the Stellaris Vigil, and it's one of the highest points in the Imperial Palace on Terra, and it's located above the clouds, all the polluted clouds and stuff on Terra, and so you could basically see at night like a bazillion stars, and one of those stars glows red, which is Mars,
of course,
and a long tech priests just go up there to watch. It's like a very solemn vigil that they do when Mars rises until the time it sets, and they're all silent. Of course, they got their little noosphere stuff going on, but
yes, of course,
there's no talking, no noise, and it's during this observance we meet our main character, who is Ambassador Vetheril. And she's a Martian exile who's still mostly human. She does have some augmentations. And, you're thinking, what kind of things does an ambassador do? Well, Zagreus Cain has, since he came to Earth, basically turned himself into this giant mechanical creature. It's just this giant construct. And so to interact with the politicians and all the different organizations, Terra, they don't like him because he is a machine, and so she is kind of his alter ego from a political standpoint.
Okay.
So very, very important, and that's what she's been doing for the last several years. And she's kind of a paradox, just like the Mechanicum is. So she shares loyalty with the Mechanicum and the Imperium, because she's an Imperial citizen, but her Martians are loyal to the Omnissiah, who's both a machine and a god. So you have those things going on.
Yeah.
Um, um, there, and this is the really interesting thing is when you think about the Mechanicum, you don't think of them really expressing many emotions.
Hmm.
There's no outward anger and stuff like that, but there's a lot of underlying frustration and bitterness and suspicion and
Yeah.
doubt, because of the way they've been treated since they came to Earth, and we're terror, and we're going to talk about that. And the soul of the Mechanicum is really in torment because it's divided. You have
Of
this
course.
thing which both the Mechanicum and Terra came up with this thing called the binary succession, because there are two fabricator generals, and Vethral's thinking of this. She's going, this is an equation, and we have to solve this equation, because if we don't get a solution to this, you can't have two fabricator generals for the loyalists on Mars. You're going to end up eventually in some kind of violent
Of course.
action, right? So now we move back. She has these little memory units in her. So we move back to a first meeting really between her and Kane in regards to this story. So he, acknowledges her work on Terra, and she's done a really good job. However, he says, I've got you something else for you to do now. And he realizes that he can't go to the Council of Terra in the giant meeting room, thousands of people and the High Lords and all that stuff. He can't go there to do this thing. There is a proposal that she's given to him
Hmm.
about what they need to do, but her human appearance is an advantage
Of course.
when you go before the High Lords. So they just don't trust the Mechanicum. And I guess there's, from my perspective, I understand that, because there's a civil war that went on, and you've got
Yeah.
one side of that civil war in the middle of your planet. On the other hand, they are loyalists, and they
Sure.
did fight against chaos. So it's kind of, you start to empathize with the way the Mechanicum feel and the way
Hmm.
they're treated on Earth. So she meets with him. They have this meeting. They meet again in another week, and she tells him that the divisions in the priesthood are just becoming super severe. Something has to be done, and asked if he would approve a proposal that she has to bring this crisis to a head and resolve the equation of the binary succession. And so we go back to the Stellaris, and there's the ritual is being observed again. And unlike other evenings where everybody just kind of breaks up afterwards, there are two tech priests who stay behind to talk with Vethral. One is Magos Garantor, the other is Magos Passax. And Garantor is kind of thin, you kind of picture the Mechanicum as gray skinned, and that kind of
Yep.
thing. Paxas Passax, though, is just this huge construct of metal. She's
Okay.
walking on six insect legs, and she's armored and all this stuff. And one of the first things that they said that we have some questions for you. And the first one was, we've noticed that there are a lot of representatives of the Legio Titanica, a
Yeah.
lot of princeps and moderati and stuff that are on Terra right now, many more than usually are. And they asked, is this a preparation for an attempt to liberate the Forge World Principle?
Hmm.
And she just simply replies, no, it's not. And strengthened the defense of the segmentum solar.
Sure.
And so they're both very disappointed. And they went on to express their frustration at the increasing demands that have been placed on the Martian forges. And they're getting nothing in return. So they kind of feel like they're being treated as forced labor
Right.
by by the High Lords of Terra. And then they also are grating at the fact that the Terrans, and especially the High Lords, have a lot of disdain for the Martian contingent,
Hmm.
because they worship the Omnissiah, and understanding that the Imperium is very secular in nature, right?
Yes.
So she's just hearing a lot of frustration, a lot of bitterness, a lot of suspicion. And she they say, where's the equality promised by the treaty? And this treaty, of course, is the Treaty of Olympus, which was signed between the quote Omnissiah
Yep.
emperor when he came to Mars and Mars, that they would be a partnership. It's not going to Mars wasn't going to be a vassal state,
Yeah.
or
We're not second class
that kind of a
citizens.
right. So uh, a partnership from the beginning. And this one of the, I think it was Passex, asked the question, where's the equality promised in the treaty? And Vethril kind of understands when people are asking these questions that this is the way wars are lost.
Hmm.
You treat an ally in such a way that they understand the position of the enemy, and all of a sudden you got a huge issue, right?
Yep.
And she left the two Magos, realizing that the crisis was already at the breaking point. So her her assurances, that hey, I'm going to be your voice, and things are going to improve. She could kind of tell that they weren't buying it,
Yeah.
at least at this point. Um, and they're frustrated for now. There's nothing else going on. So we get another flashback after that, and Vethril's just told Kane about the specifics of her proposal, and I'm using proposal because I don't want to say what it is yet, because
Okay.
it's pretty cool what she proposes. And he asked her, he said, okay, you want to do this. Are you ready for the repercussions? And she says she is, but there's no other way to achieve unity that you need within the Mechanicum if Mars is to be retaken. You,
Hmm.
you have to have this, you have to have everybody on the same page, and they're not right now because there's all this, like we talked about, frustration and suspicion and stuff. So Kane kind of, goes through his little, you know, spheric stuff and does his numbers. He goes, you're right. We have no other option. We have to do it this way, even though it's a severe choice. So she ends up on her way to talk to the High Lords and make this proposal. She encounters two princeps of the Legio Titanicus.
Hmm.
One is named Basanius and the other is Tevera. And Tevera tells Vethril that the Titan legions are here on Terra to make their voices heard,
Mm.
and that this redeployment of the Titan legions to defend the Segmentum Solar is totally unacceptable to the Titan legions.
Right.
And both of them are concerned because what's happened is the High Lords have ordered all these Titans to the Segmentum Solar, and they're leaving their own home Forge worlds undefended against the traitors.
Right.
And like Basanius goes even further, and he says, you know, who's commanding the legions? It can't be the High Lords because there's no accountability for what they do because we don't have a voice.
Right.
And Vethril says, I'm your voice. And so Tevra says, are you heard?
Mm.
She says, not well enough. And then Tevra goes, that must change.
Yeah.
So this starts what's going to happen, which is very cool. All right. So we're back. We're in the chamber, the grand chamber. Malkador is there. He's up in his big seat looking over everybody.
Mm.
And uh, Vethril takes, it's kind of a, I don't know, kind of a level, you're either really important or less important as you move up the tiers. She's on the
Oh yeah. Yeah.
third tier. So she's not quite as important. So for one last time, she kind of thinks about her proposal and she says, you know, the the slights against the Loa Mechanicum, the disregard for the concerns of the Legio Titanicum, I need to do this because she had some doubts even when she was there. And so
Mm.
we start off in one of the High Lords is Marshal Rantel. He's the head of the Adeptus Arbitus. So all the, law enforcement everywhere in the
Yes.
Imperium. So he notes, as we've already said, that there's a large number of princeps present in the Imperial Palace.
Hmm.
And he asks, who are they accountable to? Well, it's a good
Mm.
question. So she kind of takes this as a cue to jump in. And she says, hey, because of the war, the Treaty of Olympus is still in effect and under attack, right? So the promises made by the treaty has to be kept, though. Mars and the Imperium are a partnership that we talked about. Mars is not a vassal state of the throne world. And so her proposal is the provisional formation of the Adeptus Mechanicus. So this is the uh, origin story of the Adeptus Mechanicus. It was created during, I think a lot of people don't know that it was created during the Heresy.
I did
I
not.
think they think it's more of a 40K thing, but so of course, the High Lords are like, they're all like, what do you mean? Another Adeptus. That's just not the way we're going to do this. And they denied a request. They had contempt and mistrust for the Rosh. We don't trust them and blah, blah, blah. So for now, what's happened, because it goes through this big, long exchange, and she's just like, you know what? The proposal didn't pass at this time, but there's going to be other consequences just by the fact that she wasn't successful. So she goes back to Cain again, and he asked her what's to be done now that the proposal was rejected. And she just says, we will do what we must. And he looks at her and he goes, they're going to come for you.
Ooh.
And she says, I know, but the mechanism is what is important, not the hand that operates it. So she was willing to die for this, which I think is really cool. Yeah, she was so committed to it, knows how important it is. I like her as a character. She's very cool. So Malkador now gets involved in the story a little bit. He summons Vethril, and he says that he is evaluating the consequences of both accepting and rejecting the proposal. He's not quite sure yet. She says to Malkador, there's more than one solution to the equation of the binary succession, but one of those is the kind of unity, Martian unity, that the High Council can't afford. And Malkador kind of looks at her and goes, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Like the wrong kind of unity, right? That's one of the solutions to the equation. And, he hoped that everybody, basically, he told her, I just hope everybody makes the right decisions. And so, oh, okay, fine. But Malkador is such a schemer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He already knows what he wants.
Yes, that's always the key.
Tell her that, of course. Yeah, exactly. Of course. Right. So we flash back again to the Stellaris Vigil, and the ceremony's going on, and for the first time, she notices a really large number of Titan princeps that are there. Never been there before. And so as the ceremony's coming to an end and Mars is setting below the horizon, Magos Garantor, we talked about him before, he comes over and he's like pissed, man. He goes, what have you done? He goes, what you just proposed undermines the treaty. We will be slaves to the Imperium. And she goes, that's not what it is at all.
Right.
She's like, the only way for the Martians to have a voice is to do this Adeptus Mechanicus. And he's so atypically mechanicum here. And I think it's cool that you see a tech priest, a Magos like this, acting this way. And so she notices there's a crowd of tech priests that have kind of gathered around to hear this confrontation. And she knows she's done with him. She turns and walks away. But as she gets further away, he just yells at her. He goes, no, we cannot let you dishonor the treaty. We can't let you crush the Mechanicum and the independence of Mars. And he is just super angry now. And she kind of notices movement behind her, and she noticed Magos Passax is blocking her path now. She's got all these little plasma cutters that are igniting and little saws spinning and everything on her mechadendrites and everything. She moves back. One of the mechadendrites reaches out to grab her, and what she was thinking right now, she goes, the sad part about this is that Garantor and Passax truly believe that she's the traitor.
Right.
They have this belief in their heart. So to defend herself, what's cool is even though she's still mostly human, she's got these subcutaneous electus that have energy in them. So she kind of channels that energy and she sends a bolt of energy into the mechadendrite and like disables it. And she moves back away from Passax. And all this time, Garantor is just kind of sitting back there with his arms crossed. He kind of knows this is an execution and he knows he's planned it. And he's watching everything. And you're thinking, well, we'll see what happens. But it gets even worse for her because pushing through the crowd is a group of electro priests
Oh,
and they have
good.
these capacitor staves.
Yep.
And so when you get touched by one of these things, it basically sucks the life out of you. And these guys are radicals. They're like fanatics, right?
Hmm.
Um, for the Mechanicum. So she doesn't really have any defense. I mean, she's human. She's not enhanced. And she can only save herself by dodging for so long. So the priest, like just a little tiny jab as she's dodging kind of starts to cause her to lose consciousness. And finally, when she's on the ground and just about to die, Garantor comes over and gets ready for a death blow, right? And he rages on. He continues this rant about how Kane is not worthy to be the fabricator general and screams and yells at her. And all of a sudden, a lasbolt hits him in the side of the head, just blows his head off. And more of these electro priests come out of the crowd, but
Hmm.
all of them are cut down by this huge volley of las shots. She looks over, and there are 12 Titan princeps and moderati that have come to the defense of her.
Hmm.
And it's so cool, including Bisanius and Tevera that we talked about. So there's 4 princeps, and each one of them has 2 of their moderati with them.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So the last shots, of course, are just pinging off of Passax's armored shell. So she charges at Vethral, and she's got her mechanical limbs wrapped around her. Um,
This is the big
and
monster spider lady
Yeah, the
or
big
robot
monster
spider. Yeah.
spider lady.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's got, this little drill thing that comes out and it's coming
I
towards her
love it.
face. It's just the image is just so cool. All of a sudden, boom, a plasma blast hits her mechanical body.
Gotta have
Another
that.
plasma blast, another plasma blast. And this mechanical body lets go of her and just starts collapsing in on itself. And so Princeps, Basanius, and Tevera are holding their plasma pistols because they're princeps, of course,
Yeah, man.
and they just knocked her out. And um, the sad thing is they're helping her up. Is she realizes the priests of Mars have shed each other's blood again,
Yeah.
and it can't go on no matter what happens. And uh, Tevra looks at her and says, "You need to present your proposal again,
Yeah.
and this time it's going to pass." And she looks at her and she goes, Fethral looks at her and Tevra goes, "It's going to pass. I'm
Oh,
just telling you, we're going to make sure it passes." So she, when she protested, the High Lords are going to veto it again. Basanius says they cannot veto the Titan Legions. They can't do it.
okay. So you won
And
them
so,
over by being attacked. Okay.
yes, exactly. They made the mistake. So,
Hmm.
um, and then Vethral issues a final warning. She goes, "You understand the lines we kind of have to cross here." And Tevra's like, "Yeah, I understand." Just quietly, "Yeah, I get it. We're beyond the point of no return here."
Yeah.
So Vethral goes back to the High Council to present her case. This time, most of the Titan Princeps are in the chamber, except for Basanius, because he had some kind of Legion business he had to do. So they sat on the second tier this time, brought closer by arrangement of the Fabricator General Kane. He's
Hmm.
like, "You're not going to be sitting way up there because you're more important than that." And of course, right away, Marshal Rantel speaks up. He condemns the attack of the ambassador, but he goes, "Well, wait a minute. You guys have just brought your civil war to us. It's
Right.
playing out on Terra. And Pentasian, who's another High Lord, he's the head of the Adeptus Terra, he says that the issue of the disposition of the Titan legions needs to be resolved first. And Vethril says, well, who's going to make that decision? Treaty of Olympus doesn't allow for the Titan legions to be ordered by the Council of Terra.
Right.
The legios have voluntarily acceded to their many requests. And she goes, if the council isn't going to give Mars the ability to determine its own destiny, how long do you think Terra is going to stand against the War Master without the Mechanicum?
Right.
How long, will the council act as though they're commanding the Titan legions themselves? Which is why all the princeps are here, just listening. They're just sitting back listening to her. And Rantel responds, well, Mars has no voice in the council because Mars belongs to the traitors.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pentasium says Mars is under control of the traitors. And this was crazy that Pentasium did. He goes, Mars is under control of the traitors. So we are hereby declaring that the Treaty of Olympus is no longer valid.
Ooh.
Oh, and by the way, we know that there needs to be a new central authority to direct the Mechanicum and the Titans.
Yeah.
That authority is going to be here with the High Lords of Terra.
Mm-hmm.
She's just like, she's going, okay, I tried. She knows I made one last attempt to reason with these people. And she realizes that Rantel and Pentasium basically are there to pick over the carcass of the Mechanicum,
Right.
And so she looks over at Tevra and she just nods to her and signifies, it's time, right? And so just as Rantel was about to order Vethril to stand down, Zagreus Cain bursts through the chamber doors and strides up to the dais, and Malcador looks over at him and he goes, think very carefully about your next action, Zagreus.
Yep. Yeah, you don't kick into the door of Malcador in the room.
And Cain responded, I'm taking them. Already done. So Tevra gave this really cool little speech, and I just want to go over it. She stands up and she addresses the chamber. She says, we have come to be heard, so hear our voices now and take heed. If the Adeptus Mechanicus is not approved, then the Legio Titanicum will know where it stands, and we will no longer be the puppets of the Council of Terra. To your eternal shame, you have abandoned sacred Mars, and now you demand that my comrades forsake their homeworlds too, to burn undefended beneath the assaults of the traitors. If there's no Adeptus for Mars, there will be no Titans for Terra.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa. Holy crap.
Get your priorities straight.
Oh my gosh. And so Rantel, of course, is just screaming at Vethril that this is a coup. This is a takeover. This is what I knew was going to happen. This is a power play. And she responds very simply, this is the solution to an equation.
Yep.
And if you can't see that, then you have to be shown in terms you can understand. And he's like, okay, this is treason. I'm going to have all the Martians of the precepts hauled off in chains right now. And you can just tell Malcador is looking, going, that would just destroy the morale.
Oh, yeah. We're all dead if that happens.
Bad news. Okay. So all of a sudden, picture Jurassic Park and the first time you saw the T-Rex in the first movie, right?
Yes.
There's this impact tremor that shakes the entire building. This is a huge, giant building. And then there's another impact tremor and another impact tremor. And then all of a sudden, a Titan warhorn just blasts out.
Oh, okay.
So
that'll make your point.
Basanius was on other Legion business, all right. He and his Imperator Titan, and these Imperator Titans are the ones with the cities on their shoulders, yep. Right? He was walking straight for the political heart of the Imperium with this huge, monstrous god machine, and there's nothing that anybody could do to
what are you
stop
gonna do?
it. Yeah, exactly. So Pentasian's like, You have to stop demanding that, Vethril stop the God machine. And she says that only the resolution of the binary succession can stop what's happening.
Yep.
And there's more tremors. There's more blasts from the warhorn. And it's getting closer and closer. And finally, Rantel just drops back in a chair and he just screams, enough, enough. We're done. And Vethril looks at Princeps Tever again and nods. And she gets on the Vox and says, Basanius, stand down. They look outside, and this Titan is stopped like a football field away from the building. So the High Lords agree to the formation of the Adeptus Mechanicus and an Adeptus Titanicus as well. So amazing. This whole scene was just crazy.
Yeah. So is this basically obviously it's how the Mechanicus was made, but like is this essentially how they solved the problem of succession?
Yes.
By changing the form of government, so now that the high end is ultimately the emperor directly, right? Because now you're integrating into the Imperium state. Is that the idea? Okay.
Yes, and that now that they have an Adeptus Titanic or Mechanicus, Cain will be a High Lord. He will be elevated to that position. So they will have a voice in the council. And here's where this last conversation, I think, to answer your question, will be important. So Vethril, after all this, she goes outside and meets with Basanius and Tever at the feet of the Titan there. And Tever was concerned that the Titan legions are now going to be enthralled to Zagreus Cain.
Right.
And Vethril says, no, that's not true. She said they're going to have agency through Cain. And all the ancient treaties and oaths that have been taken will be respected. So, for example, in exchange for their defense of the Segmentum Solar, because Cain is now the overall representative, he can determine the disposition of Mechanicum and Titanicus forces. So what he's going to do is, in exchange for defense of the Segmentum, he's going to send loyal Adeptus Mechanicus forces to defend the homeworlds of those Titan legions.
Okay, cool.
Right. And they all realize that even with the formation and having a voice on the council, they realize that even though they're going to be now able to, kind of advise on decisions, they're going to have to abide by the decisions that are finally made. But at least they have a voice. So Vethril says, we've lost our autonomy, but we've gained greater influence.
Agreed.
And she says, I think that's the most we can hope for in terms of victory in times of civil war and treachery like this. And so that's the origin of the Adeptus Mechanicus. That's how they became part of the Council of Terra. And yeah, pretty cool story. And as you're listening to it, if you decide to or whatever, and it's just so well done because the voices are so cool, and you wouldn't think there'd be much action, but there's a few scenes that are very, very cool, and just a great story, I think.
Yeah. Okay, that's rad. Yeah, I guess I never really thought about the moment it changed as being a dramatic one, but that makes absolute sense. That yeah, they need to solve the equation. So what that means is just having a new hierarchy and plugging themselves into a different system. I like that.
Yeah.
I know. Mechanicum is like the opposite to me of Dark Angels, which is I don't really care for them like as a model line that I would want to paint. I tend to like bigger models and like chunkier infantry, that kind of stuff. But every single book I read about them makes me want to play them, right? Because they just sound so cool. Whereas the Dark Angels, I think they're cool, and then I read the books, I'm like, maybe not. So
it's funny that you say that, because like the stories like the last one and this one really made me want to build and play the Mechanicum in Heresy as an ally to my White Scars. And I've got models now that I'm building and using that are part of that. It's just so cool. There's so many neat things that they bring to the story. So great. I just love the story. It's great.
No, I love that they have their own little mini canvas of like the struggle between an atheist culture and a
Uh,
divine
oh,
one, or a religious one rather, like,
yes, that's
which of
great.
course the Imperium as a whole has, but they get to do their own little themed, vision of it for all those same moral questions, and it's just a lot of fun. So
And it's just so fun that, you know, in the end, I'm listening to Godblight, which, is a 40K novel, but this is, in 40K, there's an imperial religion.
yeah,
It's state sanctioned,
yep,
It's
mandated.
just, it's so, yeah, right.
Not
So
saying
far away from
mandated,
where they
yes.
were 10,000 years before, but yeah, good stuff. All right.
I love
So
it.
we're back on Cathonia, yes?
Yeah. So my story, I had mentioned in the last one, or in the skies over Cathonia, that I had two of my favorite short stories from the Heresy came from the same book, and so this one is called "The Sons of Cathonia" by John French. And if
Mm,
you
okay.
are fairly new to Black Library stuff, John French is one of those authors you can pick up just about any of his books and you will enjoy it because he's fantastic at writing dialogue, which
Yeah.
is just for sci-fi to me is like a great background to have like great moral questions, and he does a great job of bringing those up. So it has a little bit more meat on the bone.
Sure.
So, yes, here we are back on Cathonia, which is the home world of the Sons of Horus. It is a mined out old hive world with nothing to offer except it's a tourist attraction for people who love the Primarch, basically, is how I
Sure.
look at it.
Okay. All right.
It's important to note that when the heresy began, Cathonia is in like very well defended loyalist territory, and the Imperial Fist snapped it up immediately, and they are the defenders in this, even though it's the attackers are the natives of the planet. It's kind of an odd thing.
Sure.
So, um, our little book here opens up with a huge explosion and a marine kind of coming to, doing a little body scan, looking at his armor, heads up display, and he is trapped under rubble. While
Oh.
stuck there, he starts to like kind of we get the sense that his memory is a little bit jarred for some reason, which we'll explain in a second.
Mm,
But he's
mm.
trying to remember, like, okay, who am I? Where am I? What was I doing? And he recounts this mission that he's on. So, essentially, he's an Imperial Fist that was sent out on a mission into the near endless tunnels, pathways, whatever of this hive city. And the plan was we're going to go meet and kind of root out some Sons of Horus ambushers, skirmish with them a little bit to kind of keep them on their toes. And when they chase us, we'll fall back to a bridge that will blow up and seal them off, basically, while killing a whole bunch of them. So that was the
Okay.
plan. Him and his team, I think it was like 16 Marines, they go out. They actually meet the Sons of Horus like way sooner than expected, as if like the enemy was right outside the gate and they thought they had to like march for a day, kind of a thing.
Okay. Okay.
The Sons of Horus that charge them are everything from what looks like grizzled veterans to people who have almost devolved into like canine type forms, like mutations and stuff. Just ran straight at him. Um, the Imperial Fists kind of scramble. They set the charges because now they're at the bridge rather than being past it and leading them back towards it. And they blow the entire bridge with themselves on it. So that's
Oh,
how we ended up here in the rubble. He blew himself like 4 stories down, totally lost in the tunnels of Cathonia.
okay.
So that's our little, he's kind of coming to and kind of figuring that out. So he kind of like works his way out of the rubble a little bit, and he starts looking around for a weapon. He lost his in the explosion. Looks around, sees a bolter on the ground. It's next to a dead body of an Imperial Fist. He rolls it over and he sees it's his friend.
Oh,
Our main character here, who we're seeing things through, his name is Diasis, and the friend that he found is Thassius.
okay.
And they basically had been buddies since they were recruits together as
Oh,
kids.
oh.
Like, he brought people in. So he takes Thassius's bolter and kind of does a little like, puts his hand on his chest and says, "You will be remembered, brother." And then out of nowhere, a voice in the darkness taunts back at him and says, "None of us are going to be remembered, son of Cathonia." And then, of course, our guy like cocks the gun. He's like looking around. He thought he was the only one alive. Um, and we now realize that he's being hunted. There was another survivor, Sons of Horus, in the avalanche who's been watching him.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay.
so yes, and at that point, when he realizes being hunted, our perspective of the story shifts to being the hunter. So we are now Geldron,
Mm.
a Sons of Horus veteran, who basically begins. Most of this book is just these two warriors stalking each other, trying to get like in a favorable position to strike at each other, but they
Okay.
keep taunting each other to figure out where the other is in the dark.
That's cool. That's
So
cool.
like there's a lot of dialogue to go over. That's mostly what it is, but like what they're really doing is just hunting each other like two snipers. It's pretty cool.
Mm.
Um
Okay.
and so let's see. Yeah, my
That's
legs
pretty
here.
neat.
From our internal monologue of Gelden, he's thinking about his time here when he was a child on Chthonia, like at this point, decades, if not a century or two ago. And he's like, the way that, this was my gang that I was a part of, and we were super feared. And the way that you survive in Chthonia, at least the gang tunnels, is you have to get really close to your prey, strike them, specifically go for the legs, and then do the kill shot.
Huh.
So that's what they're doing to each other. Essentially, he's trying to creep up on Diasis to get that shot in.
It's cool.
Yeah, I know it's a fantastic one. But the chat that they have during this kind of sparring is really important. Geldrin is, as he says, what we would consider a true son of Chthonia. Not a ton of details like on his rank or whatever, but he was raised there, taken as a recruit, sent to the furthest corners of the universe, fighting with Horus, or at least his main legion that was there.
Yes.
And then he returned home at this point to reclaim his War Master's planet, his home. And what he found there shocked and enraged him. And so he's essentially expressing, I couldn't believe what was waiting for me when I came home. And this is our traitor saying this.
Yeah.
And what he's referring to is that Diasis is an imperial fist. But once the devastation and the sheer body count of the heresy was revealed to everybody involved, that it wasn't going to be a quick win for Horus and it was going to be a long slog for the Emperor, both sides started doing what are called inducti legions. And this is one of the reasons I love this story is it introduced me to new lore ideas. And this is the first I had heard about inducti. So essentially, they are super rushed. In our terms, we would say batch painted space marines.
Yeah.
Where it takes about a third of the time to make them to go from human to space marine, but with a way higher failure rate. And this can be like a lot of things. This could be your body just gives out. You could go insane from the psycho indoctrination happening too fast. Sometimes they'll skip some of the organs that are put inside space marines. They'll cut the recovery time in between surgeries. So you're still trying to you just kind of look like a Frankenstein all sutured up kind of a thing. Nothing heals. They're basically like flash in the pan space marines. The idea we get here is that they're not really made to last. They're made for this defense kind of a thing. Whereas Geldrin was made the long way, built to last by the War Master in better times when we made better things kind of a deal.
Sure.
Geldrin himself has been on thousands of assignments, and he has seen the Legion devolve into essentially LARPing the old Chthonia ways. And this is like the Legion's kind of breaking up into their lodges with the gangs. We saw that in some of the early Heresy books, that rank doesn't matter. It's more about proving yourself individually, that kind of stuff, where it's like he's seeing what we know as Traitor Space Marines devolve into Chaos Space Marines from 40K.
Sure.
And part of that is them reclaiming all the gang sigils and markings and traditions of Chthonia. But he's looking at this and is like, you guys weren't at Chthоnia. You were barely there. We made you on the 14th expedition or whatever. I'm a
Yeah.
son of Chthоnia. You guys are LARPing. and
Yeah.
the kind of irony is now he's sitting at home with an actual brother of his home planet, and the two don't even know each other. They can't recognize each other, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he's pointing out that, like, the Space Marines are kind of falling apart into what we know as Chaos Marines, and man, they would kill to have the upbringing on Chthоnia like you had, but you threw it away to become an Imperial Fist. Which is really interesting to me. I don't know. One of the things they mentioned a few times is essentially we learned that Dionysus, the reason his memory is so fuzzy is because of the rushed indoctrination. He kind of struggles with remembering his human name, which was not Dionysus, of course, his human identity. And as the idea of the inducti, they're talking about it back and forth, it becomes clear that, like, the heritage that our Sons of Horus guy values about himself was specifically being stripped away by the Imperial Fists. And the real question is, like, well, who are you if you destroy everything who you were? This is what made you, but you don't want to be this. This place didn't name you Dionysus. That's not a Chthonian name. And it's just a really great discussion about identity, which is, to me, a really cool theme within this. And so at some point in this, kind of coming back to the actions as they're stalking each other, Dionysus takes off his helmet, and this is sort of him trying to kind of channel his memory. What was it like to be a ganger here, right? The Imperial Fists stripped it all away. So I'm going to take off my helmet and just try to be in the moment again, which is really a cool turning point for Hero. And as he does so, he hears something that his helmet wasn't picking up, which is a faint hum of power armor. And he jumps out of the way at the last second, and Geldrun basically came at him with an axe. So because he, kind of chilled out and focused for a little bit, he heard the attacker coming. The two split away. Dionysus is firing his bolter up in the air to kind of scare him away, and the two separate again. So, like, this happens a few times of them just, everyone thinks they have the upper hand. They go in for the kill, and then something goes wrong. While all these discussions are happening, a theme or a tradition about the Chthonians that's mentioned a few times is this idea of putting coins on someone's eyes when they die, which is something we have here. But basically, the way that that's integrated into the story, and it's important, is because the idea of, like, when the Imperial Fist in this scenario dies, he's like, there won't be any coins on your eyes, meaning your people won't recognize you with your own traditions because you gave them all up. Which is, it's powerful. I like that. I don't know. It's a little thing. I mean, but so we go on. They're still fighting, and our chat resumes. Dionysus, out of the corner of his eye, begins to see a small patch of light. It's like a fist-size hole in the floor above it that's letting in just the tiniest little bit. And so he starts moving towards it. And as he does so, again, he's kind of like trying to channel his inner Chthonian again. And he's like, I've been here before. I've definitely been here before. And he starts having all kinds of memories. And then he, like, puts his hand on a wall and, like, knows that there should be, like, a scratch there. And there is, kind of a thing. Oh man, I've been here before. And with that, he gets a really clever idea. So perspective is back on Geldrun. He's hunting, he's moving up, and he sees that same little hole of light, and in front of it is the very faint shadow of somebody else. And so he gets himself into his position, like we talked about earlier, right up on the enemy. He lunges out to get him, and in a flash he realizes he totally messed up. Dionysus propped up a body to make it look like someone was sitting there in the dim light.
Oh my gosh.
And now he has been clearly exposed. Geldrun's out in the open. thought he was delivering the kill shot, and he gets absolutely blasted by bolter fire. And it's an Imperial Fist player, so you know he's good at using it, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
And with that, notably, Geldrin's legs explode into viscera, and he just falls to the ground. And Dionysus walks up and essentially says, like, look at me, man. I didn't forget the old ways. This is how you do it. You wait for someone to expose themselves, you take out their legs, and you get them. And Geldron says, you're so right. You totally get it, but you forgot one thing. It's that you never forget about the blades you can't see. And out of nowhere, pocket blade he had hidden comes out and hits Dionysus in the back of the kneecap. Imperial Fist guy, he tries to shoot him, but now he's like spinning, so the bolts go wild. And before he can do anything else, the Sons of Horus puts a knife through his neck. Now, at this point, everybody's dying. The Sons of Horus, Geldrin, he knows he's dying. His system is like actively shutting down. He's already killed the Imperial Fist, and with his last little bit of strength he has left, he removes a pouch from his neck that has 2 coins in it, and he puts them on Dionysus's eyes, basically essentially respecting him as one of the people, because he, in the end, he survived because he didn't forget what it was to be Chthonian. Sure. And so that's where the book ends, with two dead guys.
Wow.
And
isn't that so symbolic of the war?
Oh my gosh. And that's really,
you know,
this was a story to me that was a lot, because rather than just being like space battles, this is the one that made it feel like civil war, of like brother versus brother kind of a thing.
Yes.
Yes. Their experiences with their identity of being Chthonian are like worlds apart. I don't recall. I don't think we ever actually learned what Dionysus's Chthonian name was. I think he had just got his brain scrambled so much that he didn't remember it. But that's, I mean, again, that's part of the greater conversation. And I remember it sitting with me of just the duality of, we have 2 Chthonians, but they literally could not be more different. I mean, between everything that's going on, like one's a grizzled war veteran, one, the inducti, he would have only been a space marine for a couple years, maybe. And it was a terrible experience. He has been so deeply programmed that like all he wants to do is praise Dorn, and he's forgotten all of the things that make him Chthonian. And you know, and then you have a veteran who like comes home. The Marines around him are devolving into chaos space Marines that we know, and he's like not impressed by them. He's like, you guys don't even understand what it's like to be this way. And then ends up giving his respect to his enemy for being Chthonian at the end. I thought was a really impactful thing. I like that.
That is amazing.
And it introduced me in general to the idea of inducti squads, because I just love the idea of whether it's a traitor taking over loyalist Marines or a loyalist legion taking over traitor Marines, forcing a Space Marine Legion that has a lot of identity staked on where they're from to be something else is really a neat idea. Like, if it doesn't even have to be the whole planet, but like imagine if Ultramarines took a bunch of people from Cultus and forced them to be Ultramarines. That's the home planet of the Word Bearers. What would it be like if those guys ever got into a conversation? That'd be weird. Like, you know, or Iron Warriors taking people from Jagoras with the White Scars, that they had just, they're diametrically opposed, Thousand Suns on Fenris, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I just thought that was a really interesting story, and it made it stand out to me of like, man, this really is like just about a line in the sand between the Imperium, and this could be about crazy monsters and space magic, or it could just be a Civil War space game. And I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it reminds me when you talked about the inducti and stuff, it and how they have no identity. You know, they're given one because they don't really come with one. It made me think about, again, in 40K, how we have the Primaris, and the Primaris are they have no legion. They're nothing. They're assigned to a legion, and they're made space wolves, or they're made whoever they are, just by being given to that. They're put in the right kind of armor and stuff, but they don't really have any understanding
Right.
of, and there's that resentment like you just talked about here, that the guys who see them coming in going, well, they're not from Fenris.
Yep.
They, they're not real space
What do you know
wolves.
about being a space wolf? Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
or in this story, what do you know about being Chthonian? Yeah, that's so cool. I love that dynamic.
Yes. And so, I mean, hopefully it illustrates why I was just absolutely one of my favorite stories. I just couldn't get enough of it. I was like, I wanted to
Yeah,
learn all about the Inducti because that was the first time I had heard of them. I wanted to learn about all the different stuff going on with Chthоnia, the campaign book, and all that kind of stuff too. So it was good.
sure. Excellent. Excellent.
Now, that's it for my story and your story as
Yeah.
well. Both of us have a little bit, or we have stuff going on, but you have some travel going on.
Yeah, sure.
So I think we'll do this again. How does that sound? Maybe like 2,
That
3 weeks,
sounds
something like
fine.
that.
I've got a story picked out already, so
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Okay, I need to go
It's
hunt one
called
down.
it's called Gray Raven, and so
Okay, sweet. Well, let's go ahead and plan on doing that. We'll go ahead and wrap up this episode. No real listener mail or questions. Just people said they were glad to hear from us again after a little
yes,
hiatus.
yeah,
So I wanted to pass that along. And yeah, I'll go ahead and close this out. Thank you all so much for listening today. It means a lot to me, and I know a lot to Dan as well. And if you have
yes.
anything you'd like to for us to discuss or hear about, or whatever, please let one of us know in the comments wherever you listen. And Dan, do you have anything you want to add there?
No, I'm just really enjoying doing the short story side. As I talked about last time, Doug, it fills in all these little gaps, and it's really a fun way to look at the heresy from a kind of a 2 foot versus a 2,000 foot perspective, and I really enjoy that.
Awesome. Me as well. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, Dan. And thank you all for listening. And until the next time we hang out, may the Emperor protect.